Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Vivian Woods. I make commentary videos. If you're not new, welcome back. So today, in honor of 420, we're going to be doing a video on the racist policies that influence marijuana prohibition. So just to start, as many of you know, 420 is a holiday that celebrates potheads, stoners, people who like to get high for recreation. And despite the fact that weed is, or marijuana is illegal on the federal level, at least where I live, which is the United States. So we're going to get into the history of marijuana itself, its use by humans throughout history, and its criminalization and prohibition of it, in specifically America. So to get started, marijuana is the most commonly used drug in the world and in the U.S. According to the United Nations World Drug Report, it's the world's most widely produced, trafficked, and consumed drug in the world in 2010, which I'm sure has not changed since. It's been 10 years, but everybody be smoking. So while it's been grown since the 3rd millennium BC, it began being smoked for its psychoactive or its mind-altering effects about 2,500 years ago. So the plant cannabis, whether it be cannabis sativa, cannabis indica, or the other one, which is hemp, is native to Central Asia. It was first used, it became popularized in Central Asia during religious ceremonies. It has an ancient history of ritual use. Now, smoking pipes were found in Ethiopia around 1320 AD, and they were found to have cannabis residue. So historians believe that people were smoking it for its psychoactive effects around that time. So the history of the criminalization of marijuana. So the criminalization of marijuana didn't happen until the early 1900s. It was criminalized in various countries, specifically in the United Kingdom. It was in 1840 that the British banned cannabis over concerns on how it affected their Indian indentured servants. So just from that, you can tell that there was a racial undertone to the criminalization of it, that their specific focus was how it affected their Indian indentured servants. In the 1900s, Mexican immigrants were fleeing political unrest in Mexico and were crossing the border into the United States. And when this happened, the Mexicans who were using marijuana recreationally, smoking it recreationally for its psychoactive effects, brought that trend with them, and it very quickly caught on, which garnered a legislative response from the United States government. So in 1936, so like I said, the early 1900s, when the criminalization first started, in 1936, the propaganda film Reefer Madness, I'm sure we all know about it, was released. And in the movie, it was the first depiction of marijuana as a gateway drug, despite the fact that that has been disproven, as correlation is not causation. That's saying that marijuana leads to heavier drugs is kind of like saying eating chicken makes you become an astronaut. While a lot of astronauts, if not the majority of astronauts, have eaten chicken, it is not the cause for them going to the moon. So in the same sense, while a lot of heavier drug users have smoked marijuana, marijuana itself is not the cause of their heavier drug use. So that was the first time it was portrayed as a gateway drug. And in 1937, the Marijuana Tax Act was passed, taxing cannabis sales. After that, came a man named Harry, I'm going to call him Aslinger, because that's what his name looks like in my handwriting right now. Harry Aslinger. Harry Aslinger purported marijuana as a violence-inducing drug that led to murder, rape, all sorts of things. And he said that it made black people forget their place in society, and that jazz music was the result of people who were under the influence of marijuana. So there we get to see not only was it criminalized because of its popularity among the Mexican population in America, the Mexican immigrant population in America, but also they tied it to race with black people. I've also read that at one point someone, if not Harry Aslinger, purported it to make white women want to have sex with black, which we all know is such a crime, the worst thing that's ever happened. So there's that. In the first full year after the Marijuana Tax Act, I believe, was passed, black people were 3 times more likely to be arrested for violating drug laws than white people. So from the early days of marijuana criminalization, we can see the pattern of black people being criminalized for the use of marijuana, despite the fact that blacks and whites use marijuana at similar rates. Some studies suggest that whites use it more, some studies suggest that blacks use it more, but the rates are still similar. So despite the rates are similar, but the arrests are not. Black people are being arrested at a much higher rate. So in 1952, the Boggs Act made sentencing for drug convictions mandatory. So further than it being criminalized, now you have black people more likely to be funneled into the prison industrial complex because of being caught with due to being caught with marijuana, which was a deliberate act and something that they did knowing that it would lead to more black bodies being incarcerated. Then Nixon in 1970 passed the Controlled Substance Act, which scheduled or made marijuana a Schedule 1 drug. So there are 2 schedules of drugs under federal law, Schedule 1 and Schedule 2. So Schedule 1 drugs are drugs that have a high potential for abuse and no accepted medical use. This includes heroin and LSD. Now, funny enough is that the heroin epidemic, or the opium epidemic that has swept through the United States in the past couple of years, has been absolutely devastating to mostly white communities, which has led to a reform in how people address substance abuse and addiction, where it's now more focused to healthcare versus the criminalization and the criminalization of people who use that drug. Schedule 2 drugs have a high potential for abuse and severe dependence, but have currently accepted medical use. Schedule 2 drugs include PCP, cocaine, methadone, and methamphetamine. I don't know about you guys, I've never heard of methamphetamine having any sort of medicinal use. I do know that heroin was used at one point in medicine, but then they found that it was highly addictive and highly harmful and dangerous, so they retracted that. LSD has been proven to have a medicinal use, I believe. So weed is up there with heroin. When's the last time you've ever seen someone overdose on weed? Never. In the history of its usage, it has never happened once, because it is impossible. It would take you about, I believe, 15 times the amount it takes to get high for you to overdose and die from marijuana, and by that time you would have passed out. So in the history of marijuana's use, which goes back millennia, there's never been an overdose, and yet we all know that heroin leads to deaths, overdoses and deaths all the time. So in 2010, the ACLU reported that black people were 4 times more likely, so an increase since when marijuana was first criminalized, where it was 3 times more likely blacks were arrested than whites. Now in 2010, so about 10 years ago, they were 4 times more likely to be arrested for weed than white people, though, like I said, both groups use marijuana. Despite all of this, marijuana has been legalized in several states around the country in America. Several countries have legalized it, including Canada. And it has been approved for medicinal use in various states. In some states, it's used medicinally but not recreationally. In some states, it's used medicinally and it's decriminalized, which means that you will not go to jail for having under a certain amount. You will not be classified as a criminal for using it. So public opinion has changed. 61% of Americans support the federal legalization of marijuana, despite the fact that our current administration, Attorney General, one of the idiots in that White House, Jeff Sessions, said something along the lines of, good people don't smoke marijuana. And that begs the question, do you guys believe that good people smoke marijuana, or that smoking marijuana automatically makes you a bad person? I would love to hear your thoughts. So that concludes our video on the racism that influenced marijuana criminalization. Happy 420. Please stay safe while you indulge. I prefer if y'all would stay home. Make sure that you're drinking your water. Make sure you got snacks and food on deck. Make sure you're listening to good music. Make sure you got good company. I know this video is a day late, but yeah, happy 420. And yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. New videos coming soon. And yeah, I'll see you next time. Bye.